All right, so now we're going to clean up our exception handling. Good news and bad news. I'm just going to copy from the previous one. Um, Two error message functions, and I'm just going to copy those in. I'm going to go over them, of course. And you're like, wait, what? Okay. So field error message just has a field and a message, right? That's all it is. It's going to be a list of field error messages. And a validation error message is a Spring validation message, and it's a group of field error messages, right? Because that's what's happening is you have a set of fields and you have messages for those fields. You can have multiple, when you have multiple errors, it produces multiple errors, right? So if this was blank, if these two were missing, you'd have a not null plus that GPA is invalid. So you see it gets really long, right? But also it's kind of like garbage, right? So the next thing we're going to do is grab our exception handler and we're going to grab the message method not argument valid, right? And just that guy. And we're going to go ahead and paste that in our global exception handler. Yay! Yes, and that's all we're doing. Did I copy the right one? Yeah, here it is. And so we have an exception. It's a method argument, a valid exception. And for a field error, it's going to get the field code, it's going to get the string, and it's going to get the message. And it's going to load these into the field error messages, and that's going to be, it's going to turn that message into a message, and it's going to give a bad request. Yay! And you go, wait a second, that's all that you're doing? That's all that I'm doing. It's just cleaning up the way the error handling actually works by using the notion of the fields and creating a list of field errors that can be iterated through. It's going to look a lot cleaner from an exception point of view. And let's look at that, what it looks like when we're done. And yes, this was a bit of trial and error to make this happen, but it does in fact work the way we expect it to work. Okay. So now we have these error messages. We send the error message and we're going to get this in return. This is a lot cleaner, a lot easier, and of course we can iterate through it. But there's two parts to this that we have to care about. Angular, we can use the fact that it's a bad request to handle most of this. But if we wanted to loop through the S message, we could very quickly look. Spring validation error, the field major must not be empty, the name must not be null, name must not be empty, major must not be null, and the field GPA. The numeric value is out of bounds. This is what it's expecting. Couple of things about this message, right? We can actually write out in the thing, each one of these takes a message. And each one of these can take a message. For example, um, for not empty, right? You can write out a full message for each one of these, and it'll come into this message, right? Right? As an example. Okay. All right. So I'm going to save these just so you can see. And you can write a message for all of these, right? For each one of these things, it has a message field, right? That's what we saw earlier when I copied them from before. And I'm not going to do it for everyone. But I am going to do it for here because oops. right? As an example. I think I got most of the error messages in here. I'm going to clean it up so they're all there. And you can see that it's going to be a lot cleaner from debugging point of view when you're looking at it, what type of error message occurred and when you got a field missing, when you got a field in an inappropriate state, what have you. We're going to actually do validation on both ends. So it shouldn't happen when we get to the other side, but it's going to start off happening. So we want to just be aware of this. Okay. So now I just send the same one, and now you got your fields. Name field must have a length greater than 0. GPA must be the form, right? So you can see that you can write your own messages and make them cleaner. Very, very easy to do. Validation is very simple. One thing I don't know if I talk about, but why do we do validation on the client and server side? You can bypass the client side to hit the server side directly. There are mechanisms to call a server side directly. So it is all about making sure you're getting what you're supposed to be getting. And you need to be able to validate on both ends, right? Very, very important. On the server side, you're going to be validating as things come in to make sure you're getting the fields and all those things that you expect to get in the form that you expect to get them. We did not put validation on the um, we did not do validation on the put. We will do that in a second because I need to talk about that one. Why did you open up? What is happening here? Why did you open up like that? Right, I was just trying to bring the thing down so I can go. Um, okay. I'm going to put those for all of them in a minute. But what I was going to say is that's actually something I wanted to talk about really quickly. So for the put, you might have a situation where it's okay to have some things, right? But you have to make a really clear decision about that. For a put mapping, as an example, you might want to check to see each field and see if it is what it should be. Okay. In other words, you might have a situation where you're going to send a request to the put that only has some of the fields and specifically a field that wants to be changed. This is not a great way to go because it does have validation constraint issues, right? It's very going to be very difficult to constrain some things versus all things. So what I would recommend instead is send everything. Angular, most systems are going to actually be able to send everything without an actual error, without an actual issue. But also, we're not talking about a massive amount of information being shared. And as a result of that, it's going to be relatively simple to send it all. So we would generally put the validation on both sides, right? So anywhere where it comes in, you need to make sure it's there. Okay. Um, Okay, and that wraps it up. I'm going to take a second to clean up the screen. What that means is I'm going to take a second to make sure that we only include those fields and those things that are necessary. And I'm going to also make sure that I go through and put messages for each one of those student things. So I'm going to do that in another recording. That one's going to be semi-optional.